Welcome to Pennsylvania in Focus. I'm Kristen Smith. Joining me today is the Center Square's Pennsylvania reporter, Christina Langell. And Christina, at long last, after 135 days, and consequently on the same day that Congress ended its historic shutdown, Pennsylvania, we finally have a budget. And it's a doozy in the sense that it hasn't changed too much from the many budgets that have been passed over the last 135 days, but tell us more about what's in it.
Yeah, finally, with just like about 3 months before Governor Shapiro proposes the next budget, we've got this one nailed down. So a lot of what's in it is kind of what we've seen in some of the budgets that have already passed the House several times during the course of this impasse. So there had been a lot of just kind of waiting to see what sort of negotiations would bring Republicans in the Senate to the table, because the House, has a Democratic majority. They were able to pass it from there. One of the issues that we have been seeing, though, was that the Senate, where there is a Republican majority, wasn't able to find agreement on that. And ultimately, the budget that did pass didn't have total agreement from either party. So yeah, what was in it? There were some changes to education. Specifically, there were some big reforms to cyber charter funding formulas, which has been a big topic in the state because the cyber charter schools have not historically performed very well. And they do receive quite a bit of money and have quite a bit in their funds overall that they carry over. We also saw the big concession that seems to be the biggest item, because when we looked at the budget, originally Governor Shapiro proposed a budget that I think was about $54 billion in his original proposal. House Democrats were able to bring that number down with their proposals to just over $50 billion. It's still well more than what Republicans would like to spend. So it seems like the big concession that kind of brought things to a close, since it wasn't the actual spend number, of course, was an agreement to get out of the Regional Greenhouse Gas Initiative known as RGGI.
Yes, and we'll talk about more of that in our next episode, so please tune in. But the Regional Greenhouse Gas Initiative, while not not directly budget related, it really did kind of swoop in here at the 11th hour as far as breaking the logjam that was this budget impasse. There's also a smaller win for Republicans, but arguably very important to them, which is that it doesn't touch our emergency savings account that has about $7 billion in it. And one of the big sticking points for them all along, particularly from Shapiro's original budget proposal, was that we were going to have to spend down a lot of the money in that account. And we didn't have a way of putting it back. And in fact, we didn't even have a way of continuing to cover that spending level, which we've been in that position before during the Great Recession. And it led to some cuts and or reversals of the money that we were spending in the year before. And that was really hard, particularly on schools. And I think you can see the trajectory there of the legislature taking over a decade, really, to not only reverse that, but then to add more and more and more to education. They've since doubled it. But in this last budget, they've put more than $550 million to go to right size education funding based on the court ruling that they had. But they're also adding more money for school building remediation. We have a ton that have lead and asbestos, and, there's no safe drinking water, and they're quite disgusting and uninhabitable, really. And in fact, one of the schools in Allentown has been around since the 1870s. So that just gives you an idea of how old some of these facilities are. There's also more money for student services like mental health grants. So there was definitely a lot of education priorities stuffed in there. I shouldn't say stuffed, because truly they are what taxpayers want us to spend our money on, aside from a few other things. So what were the sides saying about it? Because, leading up to this, it was pretty vitriolic at times. And so, but now we have a pretty strong bipartisan vote in both chambers. So what was some of the comments about it?
Yeah, they're really touting it as a big bipartisan win that they were, finally able to get everybody together. I do think that seeing the performance perhaps in the most recent general election may have influenced people to say, hey, like people are getting kind of unhappy with the status quo that's going on right now. We need government to be moving. When you contrast it to what has happened in the federal government, which, as you said, coincidentally, the same day the federal government also got their stuff together and passed a budget. But I think that they're looking at it as a big win on both sides. Republicans are saying that this is a win for a responsible budget, that it, is balanced and it's more than they'd like to spend, but it's not irresponsible spending. As you said, it saves that rainy day fund. Both sides are really happy. There's an earned income tax credit that looks a lot like the tax credits that, you receive at the federal level if you have a family and you're working and you, make under a certain level. So that'll be a big difference in people's tax returns from the state. That's a big win for both sides. I think that there's a lot of inertia still moving towards permitting reform and loosening up of some of the regulations that people see as holding back business in Pennsylvania, although there's definitely some concern, especially from the progressive wing and Democrats who are concerned about environmental issues with where that could go. I think overall, you didn't see any Republicans with the governor at the signing, but both sides seem to at least be, breathing a sigh of relief that it's finally over and, taking their victories where they can.
Right. And there were some, you talked about the progressive Democrats, but there were some pretty far right conservative Republicans that weren't happy with this either, right?
Right. So in the Senate, 7 of the considered more, far right senators voted against the bill. We also saw, again, 2 of the more progressive senators. And then in the House, there were 46 Republicans who voted against it and 1 Democrat, which was Vitale, who actually, gave a speech and talked about how this might not be remembered, but it was important to him to speak out for Reggie and for climate change and the danger that it poses.
All right. Well, I'd like to say that we'll be done talking about this for a while, but as you mentioned, we're about 3 months out from Shapiro's next budget, and I'm certain that it's going to be no easy task either, especially because we still haven't figured out a long-term deal for mass transit. But to keep up with that and more, follow us at thecentersquare.com/Pennsylvania.